Let's do some U-substitution examples. Starting with number 1, generally if you have things that are inside parentheses, for example 4 plus x squared, that's what you want to make u be. So I'm going to make u equal to 4 plus x squared. From there, I'm going to take the derivative with respect to x on both sides of this little mini equation. And we get du dx equals 2x. Now, if I multiply by dx on both sides, I get du equals 2x dx. So from here on out, I'm just going to go straight from this first line to this third line, because every single time we're going to want the dx on the right-hand side. Now, if I look at my problem, I'm going to reorder it a little bit. I'm going to move the x next to the dx. What I want to do is I want to rewrite my problem in terms of u, because the way it is right now with the x's in it, I'm going to have a hard time integrating it. So when I replace things with u's, the idea is that it looks easier. Now notice that 4 plus x squared, I'm going to replace that with u. What I have at the end is almost 2x dx. It's missing the 2. Now I can't just multiply something by 2. I can multiply by 1 though, because that doesn't change the problem. So notice if I multiply by 1/2 times 2, that equals 1, and I won't be changing the problem. So the 2 helps me because that's a du, but I'm going to put a 1/2 out front, again, because 1/2 times 2 is 1, and that doesn't change my problem. So let's get rid of that. So I can rewrite this. I have that 1/2 out front. I have u to the 10th du. Now notice, now that it's in terms of u, it's a lot easier to integrate. So I'm going to have 1/2 and then u to the 11th times 1 over 11 plus c. Simplify a little bit, 1 over 22 u to the 11th plus c. Last step, you want your final answer to be in terms of x, so replace anything with u in it to have your x's. We said at the beginning u equals 4 plus x squared, so I'm going to sub that back in. And we have our answer. Let's do another example. Again, notice you have stuff in parentheses, and notice how the problem is right now. It's going to be hard for us to integrate. So I'm going to start by trying to make the stuff in parentheses equal to my u. Again, most of the time that works. Now I'm going to take the derivative on both sides, and like I said, I'm going to just automatically put the dx over on the right side. So for this one, I have a 4 in my numerator, but I want 2 dx. So I'm going to split my 4. I'm going to make it 2 times 2. So I'm going to bring a 2 out front, and just to make it a little bit more clear, I'm going to move this 2 next to the dx. So notice if I did my 2 times 2, I would get my 4 that we started with. So I'm not introducing any new numbers in this problem. So we're going to replace 1 plus 2x with u. We're going to replace 2 dx with du. So I'm going to have 1 over u cubed du. Now to make my integration even easier, I want to write this as u to the negative third du, and when I integrate it, add 1 and then multiply, we get negative, the 2's cancel, but I still have the negative. Negative u to the negative 2 is the same thing as 1 over u squared. So I have negative 1 over, instead of u, put your 1 plus 2x back in there. And we have our answer. Let's do another one. Same thing, this one's going to require U-substitution. I'm going to take what's inside my parentheses and make that equal to u. And when you do that, you hope that the other stuff that's happening is going to help you get your dx. Or sorry, help you get your du. So my du, take the derivative, 2x dx. And notice it is. And if we want, we can rewrite the problem. As you do more problems, you might skip this middle step. But notice you have your u and you have your du. So let's rewrite this in terms of u. This is going to be u to the 4th du. Again, notice that it's much easier to integrate. U to the 5th, I want to multiply by 1/5 out front. Don't forget the plus c. Substitute back in so that we finish to be in terms of x. And we have our answer. Okay, let's do a few more. Okay, same thing. We're going to need U-substitution for this one. So I'm going to take 3x minus 2 and make that my u. Take the derivative, du equals 3 dx. So similar to the first problem, I'm going to need a 3 dx. So to make it 1, 1/3 times 3 equals 1. So I'm going to put a 1/3 out front. We don't need it, but I need to include it in order to not change my problem. So I'm going to rewrite this in terms of u, and then we can integrate. So I have u to the 21st multiplied by 1/21. Don't forget the plus c. Simplify the fractions out front. We get 1/63. I'm going to substitute back in 3x minus 2. And we get our answer. All right, we've got a couple more. Get a slightly more complicated. Okay, so for this one, another kind of trick is if you have stuff that's under a radical, a lot of times that's going to be what your u equals. So I'm going to let u equal to 1 plus x plus 2x squared, and you can always try something, and if that doesn't help you, then try a different u. But a lot of times this ends up working. Okay, so for my derivative, I get 1 plus 4x, all of that dx. And look at how convenient, I have 1 plus 4x dx. So that all together is going to be my u. So I'm going to rewrite in terms of u. I have 1 over the square root of u du. To make integration easier, I'm going to rewrite 1 over the square root of u as u to the negative 1/2. Let's do our integrating. Negative 1/2 plus 1 is positive 1/2. Flip the fraction, and we're multiplying by 2 out front. Replace it to have my x's back in there. And we don't really write our answer to have a 1/2 power, so I'm going to rewrite it with the radical. And we have our answer. Oops. Okay, one more for this video. Let's see, I have 5 minus 3x in a denominator, so I'm going to make 5 minus 3x my u. When I take my derivative, I get negative 3 dx for du. So I'm going to need negative 3, and to make it 1, I'm going to multiply by negative 1/3 out front. So I have negative 1/3. Keep in mind that 5 minus 3x is in a denominator, so I have 1 over u, and then I have my du. Keep in mind that when we integrate 1 over u, that gives us natural log of the absolute value of u. Don't forget your plus c. Okay, instead of u, we want it to be in terms of x, so put your 5 minus 3x back in there, and we get our answer.